There's things that aren't worth mentioning in everybody's life. My sister was just beautiful, though. Just beautiful. And a gift from God. A real gift. Hi, I'm Leslie Doctor, formerly Leslie Redford, and I'm here to talk about myself, my family, but mostly my sister Andrea Redford, who has passed, and I want to honor her memory. My folks grew up in that time where my father was in World War II in the Navy in the South Pacific, and he was looking for somebody to correspond with. And his sister worked with my mom, and my mom became his pen pal. And long story short, they met, and he sang beautifully and she played the piano, and it was music from the beginning. And so they fell in love and got married. We're from a Jewish family, and he converted to Judaism and started their life together in Indianapolis and ended up near Carmel. We went to Carmel schools, but lived in between Indianapolis and Carmel. But we always felt like we were tied to both. I am the youngest of 3 siblings, Andrea K. Redford and Michael William Redford, and myself, Leslie Eileen Redford. And my dad passed when I was 4. My brother was 6 and knew he was the man of the family at the time. And my sister was 8, just turned 9. And it was a solemn time. It was a time where we were all broken. God, in His grace, sent my mom, a young woman, to come help her, Marianne Staten. She became Beck, and she helped our family get on our feet again and laugh again and just come to a new normal. So we've always been grateful for Marianne. We were very, very close to our grandparents, and they were very supportive and very influential in our lives. They were very involved in the Jewish community, and that was very much part of our identity. So after Papa passed, we all found a new normal. And what I remember of my sister was she was full of life and had many interests. And I have such fond memories of her. When you share a bedroom with someone, you learn all those fun things and those intimate things about your sister, your older sister, who I admired very much. I don't want to say I worshipped her, but I really looked up to her. And there were so many fun things about her. She had such a wonderful laugh. And boy, could my grandfather make her laugh. Um, oh, we had so many times around their dining room table, and I just remember the laughter. You know, God gives each one of us a particular gift. And she knew from early on that she wanted to be a teacher. So she had all of us kids in the neighborhood pretty much. Few kids would remember her and not remember she wanted to be the teacher and the librarian. And we would play school and library on our porch. And so many kids in the neighborhood would be on our front porch. And there's so many memories there. And her two best friends when she was growing up were the two boys across the street, Rick and Mike. And but she had several girlfriends. One in particular would be Linda Lewis. They were side by side in their bassinets in the hospital. They were born one day apart, and Linda was a wonderful friend and still is. She had a wonderful musical ability. She loved to sing. She loved to play the piano. She became very good at it, but she would sing with all her heart. And in our early days, we were very used to hearing the music from Sound of Music and West Side Story. And even in being in Girl Scouts and being in the Girl Scout choir, she was known to have a solo singing Climb Every Mountain. And we would at my grandparents, we would pretend we were the Von Trapp children. Of course, I was little Gretel. But we would sing and laugh and play those parts. My sister Andrea had many, many friends in her life. She was very passionate about her friends, and she became part of the Carmel Marching Band. Many of her longtime friends were part of that also. She played the flute, and she loved that. And she did have many passions that she developed. I think she was very close to my grandmother, and a lot of her passions and convictions were from our grandmother and our mother, politically from our mother. But in high school, she was a very devoted friend and very passionate, devoted girlfriend. The love of her life, Bill, was that special guy that really put the gleam in my sister's eye. And I love seeing her happy. And she had dreams that she did pursue. She was a good student, and she ended up being accepted to Ball State. But what I shouldn't neglect to add was in her senior year of high school, her being such a devoted, loving friend came back to her because she became homecoming queen of Carmel High School. And we were so proud. That was a wonderful day. And she played out that part for many years, and she would have a wave, and she would kid about, wearing her crown. So she got accepted to Ball State, and when she left for school, there was an empty place. She filled a big place in our home and in our hearts. But we were proud of her for going on. She pursued a degree in social work and criminal justice, and she did well with that. And the day she graduated was another happy day that we all got to be part of. And so she went on to using her degrees as a social worker in IPS schools. She was at Crispus Attucks for a while. She was at Tech. She was at School 101, I think I'm remembering correctly. And along with all her college friends that she dearly loved, she had a new set of wonderful friends that she worked with, that she remained in contact with for many years. And that love of teaching she had as a child, and being part of a school system, developed into her teaching adult education at Ivy Tech. In the midst of all that, she was married. She was married to Jim, and they lasted for a while, but unfortunately, it came to an end. And that developed her character and changed her in a way as any painful experience would. But she certainly went on in life, and she found that she could become a teacher in Japan. Well, this was another love in her life. She wholeheartedly went with her passions and her desire to teach, and just fell in love with the Japanese people and made many enduring friendships there. She just loved that. And I remember seeing an article in the paper of her over there, but they gave her Asian eyes in the photo of her being in that article. So I know so many people there accepted her into their culture, and that was beautifully life-changing. She came back and lived in California for a good while, and very much so reconnected with our childhood nanny, Mary Ann, and made a life for herself there, and ended up coming back to Indianapolis for a while. I'm not certain I have the chronological timeline totally right, but she did do all these things. She then went to Korea and taught English, and loved those children. And that became part of her also. All the while being a devoted aunt and devoted daughter and sister, and we all were living our lives, and we would remain in contact when she was out of the country. Maybe not so much, but it was always a big deal to pick her up at the airport and spend time with her when she would come back home. She then went on to Poland to teach English and got very involved in learning about what actually happened during the Holocaust. She had been a family historian with our own family, but had done some research about our European family ties and who had been part of the Holocaust. So it was greatly impactful to her and another life-changing moment for her. And she would go visit the camps and was heartbroken by it. Understandably. She decided it was time to come home, that Mom needed her, and she came to live with my mother. And at the house that we all grew up in, my mother was still there, and she was there a year to the day when Mom passed, and she was that daughter that was there through thick and thin. They had they didn't always have an easy relationship. It was very hard on my sister to lose her papa, and I think she was a daddy's girl more than a mama's girl. And they didn't always see eye to eye growing up. And sometimes they fought. My mother was an only child, and the dynamics of their relationship weren't always easy, but they had a real love for each other. And my sister made that decision that it was her responsibility to come take care of her. And Mom had been ill with cancer before and recovered, but it seemed that Mom's health was not the best, and it ended up she did have cancer again. And so my sister spent that time with her, and my mom and I were very close, and I wanted to step back and let Andrea have that time with her. Again, it was being a devoted daughter and responsible daughter that Andrea took that responsibility to live with Mom and take care of Mom. I'm grateful she took that time out to be with Mom in many ways. But it was very difficult for Andrea, and it was hard for her to let my brother and myself in at times. And other times there was, we didn't know how we could be helpful. So it was a difficult time. And the time of Mom's passing came up suddenly, it seemed, and was short. We had a very close friend pass away right before, so I look back and wish I had been there more for Mom and Andrea and Mike. Uh, but things being what they were, we handled it the best we could. So she was there in the house when Mom died, and it was about 1 o'clock in the morning, and she called my brother Mike and I and said, "Come if you want to see her before they take her away." And Andrea, Mike, and I had a very special hug. Outside that night. And it reminds me of a very special hug the three of us had. Andrea and I went to Mike's college to surprise him. And that was a very special day. We understood after Mom died that it was harder on Andrea than we realized, and but many friends and loved ones and family members gathered around us, and we're very grateful for that. And we miss Mom terribly. We knew that Andrea needed to stay in Mom's house, which she did. It came up to the year 2010, and our third daughter, Rachel, was about to be married, and we had the wedding at our house in the backyard and the back patio, and Mike and family were there, and of course Andrea came, and it was a time of celebration after the wedding itself, and there was lots of music and dancing, and wow, did my sister love to dance, and she was good at it too, and so is my brother. And it was that was the last fond memory of that day of the wedding. The last day we all really enjoyed being together. That was in June, and July 5th, she told us that that she was starting to have physical problems and was in distress about that. It was cancer, and this was something she had never experienced before. And to correct myself, I believe that started on July 5th, evidence of that. And she, at some point, let my brother and I know that she was going to be getting treatment and going in for surgery. And so she asked us to be at the hospital while that was going on, and some of her other friends were too. I'll never forget that day the doctor didn't have good news after that. And all those friends she had over the years, so many of them rallied around her and started helping take care of her and in Mom's home. And I would take shifts to go help take care of her. And it's so interesting how beautiful things will come to the surface and come back around. And all the conversations that took place. And Andrea needed to walk. She needed circulation, was her friend at that time. And I remember walking with her. And I was the one singing "Climb Every Mountain" for her. But my sister and I, we had a very deep love for each other, but we didn't always see eye to eye. But I was there for her. And in the midst of it all, she had to go back in the hospital. And she asked me to come with her. And I'm so grateful to God for being able to spend the last 10 days of her life with her. I slept next to her. And we had different things to talk about. But again, going back to when she was still home, she didn't know if she was going to pass or not. But one of the things that my sister was always known for was her long, beautiful hair. And there was a point where it was too much for her. And we were in the bathroom and she was seated, and I cut her hair about shoulder length. And that was so much a part of her identity. She'd had long hair for a long, long time. She was 56 years old. And there came a point where her friends and us taking care of her at home was too much. So she had to go back in the hospital. And there were a lot of people praying for her. God sent her a very special nurse named Becky. And she brushed her hair. And she spoke kindly. She spoke words of life to her. And Andrea shared some of those things with me. Some of those deep spiritual things with me. And I have confidence that God met her right where she was. And she wasn't alone. I was with her, and God was with her. And many of my friends even came to speak comfort to her, to pray for her. And I remember in my mind, I couldn't face the fact that she was going to pass. And the hospital staff had to look me in the eyes and tell me she's going to pass. And so I was with her, and there came a point where she couldn't talk anymore. But I do remember we were watching America's Got Talent together, and she asked me, "Do you think Jackie Evanko is going to win?" I felt very strongly that I needed to read out of the Bible to her. And God gave me a scripture to read to her. And I know He woke me up at 5 a.m. and told me it was time to read to her. And I read Isaiah 53 to her. And I knew I did all I could do at that point. Many friends came that day. Mike and Kathy were there. And Maria was trying to get there, but she wrote her a poem. My sister had been a poet, and Maria wrote her a poem, and I read that to her. And it was one of those days in your life that you'll never forget. I'm thankful I could be with her in those times because it was so healing for us. And I looked her in the eyes on one of those days, one of those 10 days, and I knew that somehow we were transferred back to those moments in our childhood, and all the other things didn't matter. And so, again, many loved ones were gathered around, and Kathy, my sister-in-law, came and got me, ran and came and got me. And so I got to be in the room when she passed. And now that hug that once was 3 was now 2. And whether my sister made right decisions or wrong decisions, or did or said things that were sometimes lovely and sometimes uncomfortable, she was my sister. And I thank you, Lord, for her. So over the years, since September 24th of 2010, we've had a lot of time to reflect on her life and all the good things, all the sweet and precious things, all the times of her breaking out in song, breaking out in laughter, teaching me to drive, teaching me all sorts of things, expecting more of me, bringing us all to think outside the box at times, outside of our own boxes. I think her life was full of times of acting, playing, wanting to play with people, wanting to play with her nieces and nephew, wanting to be that, wanting there to be more in life. And she pursued things and went after things and found a lot of life in those things. She was a poet. She was a teacher. She was a teacher. And she was many more things than that. But I believe she found who she really was meant to be at the end. And we can celebrate her life. My sister had a way of elaborating on certain events. Happy birthday to her became Harlow Hickenlooper's version of happy birthday, which she shared and passed on over the years with our daughters. But I can't celebrate a birthday with my brother and not hear my sister singing that very special version of happy birthday. It was very profound to me, spending those last 10 days with my sister. It was very life-changing for me. How God can so beautifully be with somebody that you so loved and so prayed for. And I'm very grateful for her. I'm very grateful for God allowing me to be there. And over the years, I've realized more and more what she meant to me than being in the thick of it. If there is anybody who's struggling with grief or trying to get through and be healed, my hope, my only hope, is in the Lord. And I got through those hard things. And, there's things that aren't worth mentioning in everybody's life. My sister was just beautiful, though. Just beautiful. And a gift from God. A real gift. And if I could tell her anything, I would let her know what a gift she was. And what a joy she was. And how sorry I am. She had to go through so many painful things in her life, but the courage she showed and the fortitude was remarkable. And so, at that last wedding of our daughters, and seeing her, who we knew she really was funny and dancing and just enjoying herself. That's how I picture her. But I know that what she learned in those last few months of her life are with her for eternity. And And the Lord brought us through the grief, and so we can rest in how He took care of her.
Mom, Leslie Eileen, Redford Doctor. If you could say anything to Aunt A today, right now, what would you tell her?
What I would say to you, dear Andrea, is that it broke our hearts. That it was your time to go. You were a big part of our lives, a big part of my upbringing. And thank you for all the times you took care of me. Thank you for the times where you lovingly grabbed my hand and rubbed my hand. Thank you for being funny and interesting and going after your passions and raising the bar for us. And I would just say, I thank God for you. You were a gift. You were a gift as a big sister. And I love you. I just love you. And life goes on. And I plan on seeing you later. Thank you, God, for Andrea.